Linda woke up later than usual. Her knees were a little sore from yesterday's walk, but she didn't mind. She was used to such little things. She got up, put on a robe, and headed for the kitchen. Lauren, the caretaker, always left her a cup of coffee before she left to run errands, but today the table was empty. She went to the phone to check her email. A message from the bank caught her eye. "Your balance is below the limit. Please check your account." It looked strange. She had always had a clear spending system, and it never fell below a certain amount. Linda opened the bank's mobile app, entered her password, and froze. The amount on the screen was less than $100. She reread it 3 times. It was a mistake. It had to be. When she went to her statement, she saw a series of transactions she had never made, several large transfers to unknown accounts. Daily cash withdrawals from ATMs she didn't use. Online purchases from stores she never visited. Linda felt the blood recede from her face. Lauren often offered to pay for the purchases so that Linda would not have to carry heavy bags. She insisted that she understood bills and could pay for everything online. She even took her bank card to help. Linda never doubted her honesty, and now she was left with almost no money. Her fingers trembled as she called the bank. "I didn't make those transactions." Her voice broke into high pitches, and the operator asked the standard questions, checked the last transactions, and after a pause answered, "The money was charged to your card." Linda closed her eyes. It was impossible. But she knew the answer. She looked at the table where her favorite cup of coffee always stood. Lauren hadn't come in this morning. A year ago, Linda's life was simple and orderly. And as she had planned for her retirement in advance, putting aside enough money to not worry about finances. Her husband died almost 10 years ago, and they had no children. But Linda never felt lonely. She had old friends, neighbors, and a familiar routine in the morning. She liked to walk in the park, drink coffee in a small coffee shop on the corner, and read the newspaper. In the afternoons, she would meet her friends and watch her favorite TV shows in the evenings. But after she fell and broke her arm, everything changed. The doctor said she needed help with her daily routine. Then a neighbor recommended a nurse named Lauren. Lauren was a pleasant woman of 45, always smiling, with a soft voice and patient nature. And she seemed attentive, a good cook, and helped with the shopping. She told stories about her children, whom she raised alone. Linda quickly became attached to her. Lauren was there for her in the most difficult moments. She helped Linda recover from her injury. She managed her affairs so that she did not overload herself. She offered to pay the bills so that Linda didn't have to go out again. At first, Linda controlled everything herself, but then she began to give Lauren more trust. She gave her a bank card to use to buy groceries. She borrowed money for Horgent expenses. She allowed her to have access to documents. Sometimes Linda was concerned about something. Lauren often asked for part of her salary in advance. Sometimes money would go missing from her wallet, but Linda thought she had simply forgotten where she put it. The caregiver avoided talking directly about finances. But Linda didn't want to be suspicious. She believed that not all people were cruel, and that Lauren really meant well. Linda had never been a person who doubted others, but lately, something had been bothering her. One morning, she noticed that her bank card was missing. Linda looked for it everywhere on her desk, in her bag, in her wallet. She remembered well that she had left the card on the kitchen table in the evening. Lauren's nurse was home that day. Linda didn't want to accuse her without proof. She took a breath, calmed down, and decided to ask her directly. Lauren calmly replied, "You must have just put it in the wrong place."
"I'll help you find it."
A few minutes later, Lauren suddenly found the card in the drawer. After this incident, Linda began to look more closely at the nurse. Lauren became nervous when Linda came into the room unexpectedly. She looked her in the eye less often. She started coming in later, although she was always punctual. She spoke less, sometimes avoiding conversations. One night she woke up to a strange noise, and it was the rustling of papers in the next room. Linda quietly got out of bed and went to the study. When she peeked through the door, she saw Lauren looking through her papers. Lauren jumped when she noticed Linda. "Oh, I just wanted to clean up," she said too quickly. Linda felt incredulous but said nothing. The next day, Linda decided to check her bank account. When she opened the bank's website, her heart nearly stopped. Her account was missing a large amount of money. The recent transfers were strange. Several $1,000s had been transferred to unknown accounts. Some money went to online stores where she had never bought anything. Some amounts were withdrawn in cash, even though Linda hadn't used an ATM in a long time. How could this have happened? She muttered. Now she knew for sure someone was using her money. And the first person she thought of was Lauren. And Linda couldn't calm down. She decided to check the house to see if she could find any clues. She carefully opened a drawer in her study. There were always old bank statements, checks, and receipts there. But now some papers were missing. It was a bank statement that she didn't remember printing out. The date on it was fresh. She opened the document and her face turned pale. On the paper were her account statements. $20,000 had been transferred to an unknown account, and another $10,000 were spent on expensive purchases, jewelry, electronics, designer clothes. Several thousand were withdrawn in cash from ATMs she had never used. Lauren Bailey, her nurse. The woman she trusted for the last few years. The person who came in every day and said, "I'm here to help you." Linda felt the ground slipping away from under her feet. She sat down in her chair, feeling dizzy, and her mind was spinning. How long has Lauren been doing this? Why didn't I notice this before? Or was she really as kind as she seemed? Linda closed her eyes and thought back. She had noticed changes in Lauren's behavior. She remembered the incident with the bank card. She had heard the rustling of papers at night. It wasn't a mistake, it was a betrayal. Linda took a deep breath. She knew she had two options now: go to the police and file a fraud report. Talk to Lauren frankly and demand an explanation. What if she was already preparing to run away? Linda realized that she had to act immediately. She took the documents, hid them in the safe, and prepared for the conversation that would change her life forever. Linda sat in her chair, clutching the documents. Her hands were shaking. What would she say? Will she be able to explain why she stole from me? Or would she even admit her guilt? Linda took a deep breath and took a last sip of water. When Lauren opened the door, Linda was ready. "Sit down, Lauren," Linda said sternly, pointing to the couch. The nurse was a little flustered, but quickly regained her usual calm demeanor. "What's wrong?" she asked in an indifferent voice. Linda threw the documents on the table. "Do you know what these are?" "They are your bank statements," she said calmly. "My bank statements," Linda repeated sharply, "showing that tens of thousands of dollars have been transferred to your account." Lauren shrugged. "So what?" Linda froze. "Do you realize what you've done?" Linda's voice shook with rage. "That's my entire life savings! Everything I had!" Lauren folded her arms across her chest. "You're not young anymore, Linda. Why do you need all that money?" "Why do I need so much money?" she asked again, almost shouting. Maybe so that I don't have to live in poverty. to get treatment, to live a normal life after all I've been through. Lauren smiled dismissively. Huh? You wouldn't have been able to spend it anyway. And I just did what anyone else would have done. Oh, you mean you just decided you could steal? I didn't steal. Lauren shrugged. You gave me access to your finances. Aka, I gave you access so you could help pay the bills, not so you could spend my money on expensive clothes and travel. Linda looked at Lauren, who was just sitting there in front of her, not a bit sorry. You've disappointed me, she finally said, her voice trembling with anger and pain. Lauren sighed. So, what are you going to do now? Linda picked up her papers. I'm going to the police. Lauren rolled her eyes. The police won't do anything. You should have thought of that before, Linda. Linda stood up. Get out of my house. Lauren shrugged, took her bag, and left. Linda was left alone. Her hands were shaking. Her world was shattered. But she knew one thing. Linda sat in her living room, her heart beating like crazy. How could one person pull off such a scam so easily? How could she do it with such minimal traceability? Linda looked at her bank statements again. Several transactions were not only to Lauren's account, but also to another unknown account. She decided to take action. After gathering all the documents, Linda called her bank manager. I need more information about these transfers. Her voice was firm, though her hands were shaking. Linda, those funds were transferred to an account registered in the name of Mark Davis. Linda froze. She knew Mark Davis well. He was Lauren's son. She wasn't stealing the money for herself. Was she working with her own son? The thought hit her like a bolt from the blue. Can you confirm that all this money went to his account? The manager paused and then answered a yes. And also, some of the money was used to pay off loans in his name. Lauren wasn't just stealing, she was saving her son, his debts, his financial mistakes. Linda was her victim. Linda could not let this go unanswered. She called Lauren again. When the nurse came in, her face was impenetrable. This time she already knows I've found something, Linda thought. She threw the documents on the table. So, Lauren, now I know it wasn't just you. Lauren didn't bat an eye. What are you talking about? Your son. I don't know what you're talking about. Don't lie to me. I have all the proof. Lauren sighed heavily. He just, got himself into trouble. I had no choice. You had no choice. Linda was seething with anger. You could have asked me for help, and instead you just stole everything I had. I knew you'd say no, Lauren hissed. So you just decided to take it. Lauren looked up. Linda, what are you going to do? Linda looked her straight in the eye. You will find out very soon. Linda sat in the kitchen, holding a hot cup of tea. What do we do now? How to act? She couldn't believe that the person she had trusted with her life had just stolen it. To make matters worse, Lauren was not alone. Her son, Mark Davis, was just as guilty. Linda understood she had two options, but it would take months, if not years. Lawyers, courts, expenses. Would she survive the fight and accept the loss and start from scratch? But will she be able to live on knowing that her abusers will go unpunished? She dialed the number of her old friend, lawyer Ted Mackenzie. Linda, I've been looking into this, he said after a short pause. Lauren was being cunning. She used fake documents. She transferred money in small amounts to avoid suspicion. We can try, Ted said. But there are no guarantees. Linda closed her eyes. She could feel her heart clenching. What if she lost? A few hours later, Lauren showed up on her doorstep. I know you're thinking of suing, she said coldly. Linda clenched her fists. Do you even realize what you've done? I do. Lauren shrugged. But you don't have the money anymore. The truth doesn't always win out. Linda looked her straight in the eye. She saw the fear. Lauren knew she was guilty, but she wasn't afraid of responsibility. She was afraid of something else. You can sue, Lauren said, or you can put it behind you. What do you suggest? Lauren pulled out an envelope. It's $10,000. But it's better than nothing. Linda felt angry. And you think I'm just going to forgive you? No, Lauren sighed. But you don't want to spend the rest of your life fighting, do you? Linda was at a crossroads. If she sued, it would take years. And if she accepted the money, she would let go of the pain, but she would lose justice. She made a choice. Take your money, Lauren, Linda said quietly. Lauren turned pale. You won't win. We'll see. Linda stood at the window, looking out at the waking city. The sun was slowly rising above the horizon, flooding the streets with golden light. She used to believe that old age would be peaceful, and that she would be able to enjoy her retirement, read books on the terrace and drink coffee in the morning without thinking about money. Now she was left with no savings, no trust, and a heavy heart. She knew it would be an uphill battle, but she couldn't just let Lauren's crime go. Linda understood if she didn't get justice, there would be more victims like her. She wanted to fight not only for herself, but also for other people who are being stolen from by those they trust. But going to court is a risk. If she lost, she would have nothing left. Will she be able to get her life back? Linda sighed when she heard a knock at the door. Mary stood on the doorstep, a neighbor with whom she had once exchanged brief greetings in the elevator. I heard what happened. Here you go. The woman handed her a bag of food. Linda, we've all known here for a long time that you are a kind and honest person. We will not let you fall. Linda felt her eyes well up with tears. She never expected the support to come from those she barely knew. That evening, Linda sat at her desk with a pen in hand. She had two options in front of her: file a lawsuit and risk everything she had left, go to another city and try to start from scratch. She slowly signed the documents. Or is this a statement to the court? Or was it a lease for a new apartment in another city? Only one thing was clear: Linda was no longer a victim. She was taking her life into her own hands.